hello, all you people out there in internet land. It is us, Fat and Angry. He's fat and I'm angry. And today we're going to talk about Vigima games. Yes, video games. In no particular order, no particular short subject. We're just going to go and blab about video games until we run out of time because, well, we couldn't really decide on what aspect of them to talk about. And just as a place marker, it is the 15th of May, 2018. Now that that's out of the way, one thing you mentioned just before we started recording, Fats, was Alien vs. Predator at the arcade.
Yeah, I loved it.
Well, everyone fucking should have. But
it needs to come out.
Yes,
now.
That's...
and be in my house.
Yes, that is something that really fucking bugs the hell out of me. It's just the idea of arcade games that have never been ported to home consoles for various reasons. And you can also, if you want to, fucking throw in games that have been put on home consoles that are no longer available.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a few of those, as I keep seeing on various, what are some of those other YouTube channels that they got out there? WatchMojo.com or whatnot, where they go
Where I hear about most of my obscure video games from is actually Pat the NES Punk. Not to plug into a show, but, I enjoy it.
Well, it was, once again, when we first started, we talked about some of, our inspirations, and he's definitely one of yours, and, he does good stuff in his ICU podcast.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good podcast.
Yeah, if he ever needs me to dress up like a dominatrix for one of his videos or something like that.
Please don't.
I will.
No.
I will.
I don't even want to fucking think about that, okay? That's just no.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway. Yes.
But he's got to pay for the plane ticket. And the spandex.
Anyway, there's plenty of arcade games that I could think of that for whatever reason or another I cannot find on a home console. Now, Alien vs. Predator obviously being one of them. That one is a Capcom game.
Sorta. Right now, it was released by Capcom as far as I know, but the ownership is between Fox, Sega, and Capcom, and that's why they're not releasing a home console. Cause
Sega had a hand in that?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware.
But yeah, because there's three people that got their finger in it, they won't agree on how to split the money because they don't want to split the money, they want all the money.
God, I fucking hate that crab mentality bullshit. I am so sick of that.
The Simpsons arcade game is another one that's pretty notorious for not having a home release.
That one did. You could get that on the PlayStation Network and the Xbox 360. It's never had a physical home release.
Right.
But it has had a technical home release and digital distribution. I have that one for my Xbox 360.
Yeah. Now, as far as I know, it was taken off.
Yes, that one was taken down because it was a Konami game. Konami got really fucking butthurt after they decided to pull out of the games market. I don't fucking care who you are. Metal Gear Survive is not an excuse for what they fucking did to Metal Gear 5. Now, you've never played that, and I haven't finished it yet. I played a good deal of it.
I've never been a fan of the Metal Gear series to begin with, but...
You played the first one, yeah? Well, the first Metal Gear Solid.
I played a little bit. I got bored with it. It just wasn't my thing.
It was like a fun game to play if you happen to have a copy of the original one, or Twin Snakes for the GameCube. It doesn't really matter, but if you got it, try to fuck up and just see how many dead people you need to fucking make in order to salvage that shit. It's like, alright, I fucked up in this area. How many people, who's next, am I going to have to fucking break to get out of this? Or how many people am I going to have to shoot dead before people, wise up and realize, you know what? Maybe let's not go down that corridor anymore. Everyone we keep sending down there doesn't come back, and I have to wonder why. Maybe the alarm has something to do with it. Maybe the alarm has something to do with it. All I know is that, they don't pay me enough to go down there and be one of those guys that don't come back. But the Metal Gear games, particularly the later ones, because they kept having more and more long-ass cutscenes, more and more long dialogue as the game went on. Now in 5, they solve this a lot by just having like, oh, it's audio files you can listen to. They don't have a lot of long ass cutscenes that like right in the middle of the fucking gameplay. You just, as you go through, you unlock after certain plot points, you unlock audio files that you can listen to at your leisure whenever the fuck you want. So yeah, I'll give it that. It's because the game's more of a mission-based game, It's like an open-world game with missions, so it doesn't really do itself to the semi-linear sneaking around experience that the previous games were. But that aside, yeah. Back to the point. Well, we did say
So there
this.
was a point.
Yeah. Once again, this is an unfocused talk about video games. We're going back to the point. When Konami decided that they were going to say fuck you to all of us game players and fully embrace their pachinko machine ways, they kind of did a major pullback on a lot of the releases, and we saw a lot of Konami arcade games. Like, I think even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle arcade game got pulled off of the marketplaces as well.
Yeah.
So you lost a lot of good classics. You lost the Simpsons arcade game. You lost the X-Men arcade game. You lost the TMNT arcade game. I don't even know if you can still get the Turtles in Time one, because that was one that was getting downloaded to shitload.
That one you probably can, because it had some home releases. But you probably can't get it on Xbox Live. But...
Yeah, or PlayStation Network. Which is just shitty. But, like, yeah, well, I mean, was the Super Nintendo... Well, I think the Super Nintendo version was, like, the version of Turtles in Time. They just added some extra shit to it, right?
Yeah, they changed a few levels, as far as I understand. Like, if I'm remembering correctly, I read somewhere that they changed the level where you fight Slash, and they actually made him harder. Which a lot of people, from what I understand, consider Slash to be the hardest boss fight in that game.
But like, yeah, I remember like when they released it for the Sega Genesis, they changed it a lot, and they even changed the title to like the Stone Heist or something.
I'm not sure.
I remember hearing something about that.
I didn't have Genesis that far.
I was like, I used to have Sega Channel back in the day. That was a fucking experience for anyone that got to actually...
I had a friend who had one of those. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was like streaming games like really fucking early on, before you had Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. Before you had the likes of Steam, you had Sega Channel. Sega Channel was the first. And that was pretty neat, being able... Because they gave you around 45 to 50 games a month. Sometimes they'd really give you a gift and you'd get 55.
Yeah.
And
you actually got to play games before they were released.
Yeah, a few of them. They also had some games that never got to be released. I remember like some of them because like you got the demo units. They give you like 15 minutes to play them, and then like it would kick you off.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends. There was a Pinocchio game for the Sega Genesis, and it was one of the pre-releases on there, so you only had like an hour to play. And he did really good, and he was having a lot of fun. He was actually at the final stage where you're on a raft trying to outrun Monstro, and he could see the end goal in sight, and the game cut off before he could reach there because he ran out of time.
What a fucking dick tease. Man, that sounds pretty fucking hard.
Yeah, he was like right at the ending and didn't get to enjoy his final cutscene.
Well, like, just assume it was like a congratulations, you are a wiener.
Hey, you're a real boy. I'll go do real boy things. We've already seen the movie. We know how this ends.
But man, that was fucking pretty harsh. It's like, to kind of veer away from video games a bit. Do you remember, like, the way that Geppetto finds Pinocchio? We saw that like on a list of like fucked up kid stuff. It was like one of those meme lists on YouTube, and it was showing just like face down fucking dead.
Donkey parts.
Just like Pinocchio, just like face down in like a couple of inches of water, just fucking dead. I love how it says that like up to this point he had walked along the bottom of the ocean and was fine. Like, not needing to breathe, but he suddenly drowned. For no explainable fucking reason.
I don't think it was that he drowned. I think it was the whale impact that I mean, I know he doesn't...
He's wood. If it was enough to kill him, he would have been splintered all over the place. You would have seen just like Flotsam and Jetsam just fucking splintered driftwood.
Well, maybe they should have done that.
It's like, honestly, I think that would have been a lot less fucking dark than what they fucking showed. Just a boy just face down in like a few inches of water, just fucking dead.
Yeah, maybe have Geppetto find like one of his wooden legs and Donkey Tail.
It's like, this shit just got too real for me, man.
You know, Donkey Tail gets him something to chew on while he digs a shallow grave for the
It's a
leg.
donkey tail, not a cow tail, you monster.
It's meat.
Well, I mean cow tail like the candy. There's like those those are weird ass candies, man.
Well, cows have tails too, and there's meat on that.
Most tails have meat on them.
They got to put something in the hot dogs. Can't all be gristle.
But anyway, yeah, so going back to Konami, fuck them and for taking those games off the marketplace. And fuck them for not having released like a compilation disc. There is a Capcom's like classics collection for the PlayStation 2, volumes 1 and 2. I own both. There is a Taito classics collection, volumes 1 and 2 for the PlayStation 2. I also have both. There are several compilation games that you can get, particularly on the PlayStation 2. I think it has the most, to my knowledge. And they are fun, being able to go through and play those old arcade games again, particularly without having to worry about running out of quarters. But the fact that Konami never fucking released one is bullshit.
It really does surprise me. I mean, they are literally just leaving money on the table. All they got to do, they have the ROMs and stuff, all they gotta do is put it to CD. There's very
They don't even have to be the ones to do it. I mean, like, if you look at a lot of those, like, compilation games, there's, like, a lot of them aren't made by the companies that own the properties of the games.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of the Mega Man ones are done by, like, a fucking Digital Spine or something like that. Like, their insignia looks like a spine. And it's, like, Digital Backbone or something like that. That's the name. It's like a third-party company that converts the ROMs into a working state for the compilation discs.
Yeah.
And they do it for like the Mega Man ones, and I think they also did it for the Capcom's Classics collection as well. I'm not 100% sure on that. Keep in mind, I don't do research for any of these recordings. I'm just shooting from the hip. So if I get my facts wrong,
oh well.
Fucking look it up on Wikipedia, okay?
If you really care, you can put it in the comments section, but, you know,
yeah.
we're not going to care.
It's like, if I had a fucking, like, reference sheet in front of me, then I would give a shit. But, like, you know, all of the shit that I say in terms of, like, factoids, like, you know, stands to double check it all you want. I'm not gonna fucking commit to them.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say what I say is true. Unless it's something that I'm saying happened to me specifically, my personal experience. But anyway, going back to the point at hand, why the fuck has Konami been like, what? They got their heads so far up their fucking ass. I know this is like old news. People have been talking about this since they admitted that they were going to be going out of the games market. But fuck, man, I am still not over that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like, there's demand for these unreleased games.
It's like, yeah.
And you hear companies complaining about people pirating it, and it's like, people wouldn't pirate it if it was available.
It's like, yeah, it's like, God, who said that? I think it was Jim Sterling said that in one of his videos. It's like, you know what? Pirates, there's always going to be pirates.
Yeah.
You can't argue that we're doing this to scare off the pirates, because, like, if people want the game for free, they're going to fucking get it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much copy protection shit you're going to do. But in turn...
All you're going to do is slow them down.
And you're going to piss off everyone that wasn't the case.
Right.
In fact, since we're talking about video games in general, one thing I can bring up is video game copyright. Fuck that noise. One thing I cannot stand is when I get a piece, or like, well, back when I used to get PC games on actual discs. You remember when that was a thing?
Mm-hmm.
The long ago, the before times. Back when you actually had to fucking buy PC games on physical media. Yes, there was a time before Steam.
I remember having to put in multiple floppies. You pray that, you know, the floppies didn't overload your computer, because if you were in mid floppy insertion and it was done with your bullshit, it was really hard to get rid of. and you didn't get to play your game.
I remember like more than half of all the games that my parents got me from my old. It was like an IBM computer that my parents got back in 1980, and it only had a floppy drive. It didn't even have like a hard disk drive. It was just floppy. And more than half the games they bought for me didn't fucking work because of just how fucking goddamn finicky these fucking old computers were, and just how unstable floppy disks were.
I remember one game that I got. I don't remember the title, but it took like 8 floppy disks to install it. And at the time, with my knowledge of computers, it was just like, holy shit. How big is this thing? And,
Well, back then computers had like a total hard drive space of like what, 20 megabytes at most?
I don't know, but you were in the old days with cartoons when floppy disks could make, break, or save the world.
Yeah, that's something that's never gonna fucking get old. Like, it's like
Optimus Prime is his whole like memory on one floppy disk.
it's like, man, Optimus Prime's a fucking basic bitch, man.
But I love him.
Or that is some fucking crazy ass, like, like a data compression software that they fucking got.
Right.
It's like, it's like, oh, Optimus Prime's like, 1,500, like, terabytes of, or like, what, terabytes? Is like 100 gigabytes? Yeah, it's like terabytes of data, but like, we got some awesome fucking compression software in there. So we got it down to fit on a fucking floppy. A fucking like 100 kilobyte floppy. Don't fold it. Remember when that was a thing?
Oh yeah.
Oh god. But like, yeah, those fucking things just did not want to work. But going back to like physical PC games, one thing I always hated was the fact of like a lot of these games you had to fully install. Like completely. If it was like a 200 megabyte disk, you had to install 200 megabytes on your hard drive. Now, people, you fucking millennials out there is like, oh, that's nothing. My fucking Apple Watch has got 16 gigabytes of hard. Well, go fuck yourself. Seriously, it's like back in the day, computers sucked. Okay.
Yeah, there were computers at school that didn't even get into the megabyte territory.
It's like, yeah, like it's like fucking chugging along the basic DOS version of Oregon Trail with its like garbage fucking MIDI music that was like loud and grating because it didn't come out of any speaker. It was like the hard, like it came out of like the computer itself. So it was like this loud, grating, piercing MIDI music.
Yeah, no matter how hard you tried, you always died of dysentery.
I fucking remembered those games incorrectly because like I saw like someone going through and playing the original game, and like it's a lot simpler than I remember. I guess it's because
Well, back then they seemed complicated as hell.
well, it wasn't just that. It's because I guess what fucked me up was in the '90s. My parents picked me up because when right after '95, we got a decent computer for the time, and one of the games that got me was the Oregon Trail 2, which that one was a sequel to Oregon Trail. Now that's a funny game, especially since for some reason, even though my disc didn't have any scratches on it, it kept getting. Every time I played it, the data got more and more corrupted. So where the opening cinematic, like which was like a really bad like Sega CD quality opening thing,
Yeah.
or like it was like a really badly compressed video file. Like it kept getting more and more distorted every time I played it, so that the music was like all warped and the dialogue would speed up and slow down. So it was like this weird fucking funhouse version of it. And it is like at first it was annoying, and then as it got more fucked up, it became more and more entertaining. Because it's like, all right, let's see how more fucked this thing's gonna get. It's like back in 1800. It's like, holy shit, this game's vomiting all over my computer.
One thing I thought was, well, I think is kind of funny. My grandpa, he used to get a whole lot of computer games, but he would get them pirated. Um, Yeah, it was a thing back then. We still had computer games. Didn't ruin the market.
Well, there's like, well, yeah, some people actually encourage that shit.
Yeah, but sometimes we would get some with viruses, and it's like, with how little space there is on there, where do you find the room to stick a fucking virus?
Very carefully. But like, well, it's like no, it's like fucking id Software. They distributed the first few levels of Doom like as shareware for free.
Yeah.
And but like if you wanted to finish the story, you had to actually buy the final product. And like shit, like
Yeah,
if
we
you
had a version of Ghostbusters like that.
it's like, I mean, shoot, that was marketing back in the day for some people, and for me, most all the games I ever pirated during the days of like Napster and LimeWire and shit like that, I ended up buying them when I got the chance. But we don't. It's like at least around here, I've never seen a really good like volume or diversity in PC gaming. Most of the physical copies of PC games you could get back in the day, it was like the basic shit. It was like Warcraft 2, Doom 2, StarCraft, Diablo, and that's it. If you wanted to get like Sea Dogs, if you wanted to get Europa's 1400 The Guild, you wanted to get Europa's Universals, you wanted to get Victoria, like Empire Under the Sun, you wanted to get like any non-major PC game, you were fucked because you couldn't buy them. And this is like back in the day where like you couldn't download them, like there was no Steam.
Right.
So either you went on to like a file sharing site or a torrent site and tried to get them there, or you didn't fucking get them. But I'll tell you what, GOG.com, fucking giving them a free plug. It's like, man, it's like when they fucking came around, like a lot of those games that like they'd long since stopped selling and that were too old to be put on shit like Steam, they fucking put them out there, and I'm like, well, now I can finally buy those games.
Yeah.
And I bought them. Like almost everything I've ever pirated, I bought either a physical copy of or I bought digitally.
There's only two games I can think of that I've pirated, and that was just more out of curiosity to see how it worked. And honestly, I wasn't very satisfied with playing Castlevania on the computer, so I just deleted them. But it was for, I think, the Game Boy Advance, Circle of the Moon and Aria of Sorrow.
Oh yeah, like it's like a console emulation. Man, I remember I was in high school when someone brought a floppy disk that had a couple of NES games on it. It had like Russian Attack, it had Punch Out, and it had like a couple of other games. I can't remember what they were, but just playing them on a school computer off of a floppy. Well, not a floppy, but off of like a hard disk.
Yeah.
Which was just one step up from the floppy. That was fucking crazy for me. But of course, playing Nintendo games with a keyboard is bullshit. So, yeah, that's when investing in a PC like video game controller, like a console style controller, was really fucking important.
Yeah.
And man, that's when they fucking stopped selling them. It's like now you just like, well, just go out and get like an Xbox 360 controller. It's like, well, you have to get the wired one, otherwise you need some fucking bullshit program that doesn't work most of the time. It's like, well, you just need to upgrade this and you need to get this third party. It's like that. No, that's too many fucking steps. Anything more than 2 steps is bullshit. I am too tired and lazy to deal with all of that bullshit. I'm sorry. I see all these things like how to fucking use your PlayStation 4 controller on your PC. It's like this fucking laundry list of bullshit you need to do. And a lot of them, because they're wireless, is like, my computer can pick up Bluetooth signals. Why can't it fucking pick up the Bluetooth signal that my PlayStation 4 controller is spitting out? Because that's also Bluetooth technology. It's just like, no, it says that I gotta fucking buy this special Bluetooth receiver that goes into a USB port. Why?
Well.
Fucking first party non fucking bullshit. But anyway, going back to my God, we go off topic on here.
The point being is, if you're not going to make it available, you don't get to bitch about pirates.
Well, the thing I was going to say is, like, I've actually had a couple of run-ins with DRMs that have pissed me the fuck off. But one thing I was saying earlier was that having to install a whole fucking game on your computer.
Yeah.
Now, let's say just an example, Ages of Empires 2. I remember installing that into my computer. And this was back when our computer's total hard drive space was like a gig. It was 1,000 megabytes. So installing Ages of Empires 2 on your hard drive took up quite a bit of space. Now, the idea that I still had to keep fucking putting the disk in there was stupid. And I didn't like that. Luckily, at the time, well, a couple of years after that, some websites started coming out with game cracks. And what the game cracks were for were just like, essentially, once you installed the game, it was like a CD key. You didn't need to keep putting the CD in there. I'm like, thank God, now I don't have to keep like swapping out fucking discs all the time when I want to play a different PC game. It was essentially like Steam is now. It's like, imagine if for Steam, if every time you bought a digital download on Steam, you had to fucking wait until they mailed you to your house a little like blank CD, which only has a CD key on it for that particular game. And if you lose that, you can't play that game. That would be bullshit. Everyone would say that. That would be just stupid, and it would be bullshit. But now they have another thing, because with Steam, you got to be online to play the fucking game. Or at least with a lot of the games. I know that some people, like, you can get Steam to work on offline mode. For me, it's like, sometimes it lets me, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what the fucking problem is with that. Another game that I had was one I mentioned earlier, Europa's 1400 The Guild, which is I like it. It's a bit of a nerdy game because you're essentially stepping in the shoes of someone living during the Renaissance. But it's fun because you can be a real asshole to people in that. You can do stuff like put poison on, like, you know, their shop handles so that they get sick and their workers get sick. You can stink bomb their shops and their homes. You can throw fire bombs in through their houses. You can blackmail them. You can get evidence and, like, you know, have like bring them to court and shit. You can challenge people to duels. You can like force them out and form a monopoly. There are so many dickish things you can do in that game. It's amazing. But the company was distributed by a company I believe called Jaywood. And they, at the time, were notorious for doing really shitty DRM shit. And case in point, I bought a physical copy of this game. I had the CD key. I had the physical CD. I install this thing. I put in the CD key, and the fucker won't run. And when I look up on the forums, they say, oh yeah, people using this kind of computer, a Dell something, 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 which happened to be the computer that we had, oh, it just won't work. It's like, why? It says, oh, well, it's something in the DRM. It's like, so the copy protection to keep people from playing this game illegally is preventing me from playing this game legally. And it's a PC game. Back in the day, when you bought PC games from the store, guess what? You can't return them.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want people installing them onto their computers and then returning the disc for whatever reason. And then they just only sell one copy of the game that gets returned because people just installed their computer. But yeah, it was a real pain in the ass. You know, I had to fix that. Luckily, on the forums, someone had put down where the DRM code was. And it was like this file that you could open up in Microsoft Notepad. And when you did, it came out as like all these lines of code. It's like paragraphs of code. It's like 100 pages long. So what I had to fucking do is I had to copy paste the whole fucking thing. And then what I would do is I would cut out like code one paragraph at a time. Put it back in the files. Try running the game. If it didn't work, I reloaded the original back end and removed another paragraph of code. I did this like 20 times. It was like the 21st paragraph of code. I yanked that out, put it back in the file, put on the game, and it started up just fine. And I'm like, that's the fucking paragraph of code. That's the shit that was keeping me from playing it.
Yeesh.
is like that is some real caveman beating two rocks together type hacking. But it is like the only hacking I've ever done, and god damn it, I'm proud of what I did. I brute forced that motherfucker into working. And to tell you the truth, was like as if you could tell from my description of the game, I had fun playing that game. It was worth it. But why the fuck would I have to do that just to get the thing to work? I bought the game. I put in the CD key. The game is physically in the fucking disk drive. Why do I gotta deal with this bullshit to be able to play the fucking game I bought?
So eventually I bought a Super Nintendo.
Fucking taking us onto that little chestnut again. Hey, it's called Fat and Angry for a reason. If I don't get angry enough, people are going to think this is false advertising.
Maybe I should eat something.
Someone get this man a sandwich. No, we need to like fucking get some sponsors. Like if we could even get like fucking 2 people listening to this drawl that we're putting on there. If one of them's at least willing to donate $1.
If we can get at least 2 people listening, one donating $1, I think we can get some advertising from Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Which goes great with the taste of eggs.
I love eggs.
Or at least that's what like fucking Red Letter Media would lead me to believe. That was a fucking hilarious bit.
Yeah.
But going back to stuff like arcade games that had ever been brought to home console, God, there's so many. Now but like the Predator one, I can't believe that Sega had a hand in that because that just looked like it looks and plays like a Capcom beat 'em up.
Well, I know Sega has like a lot of the licensing for like the Alien games, so I don't think they actually had a hand in putting it together.
They were just one of the people who were holding the license at the time because I remember it was like I think it was either the Sega CD or the Sega Saturn had like one of the Alien versus Predator like early games.
Yeah.
Where it's essentially a ripoff of Space Hulk, if I remember correctly.
I never got to play it. I had a friend that would rant and rave about it, but I've never seen anything in like videos that remotely resembles what he was talking about.
I've seen like photos of it, and I've seen little brief clips of it when people show like old commercials for like the Sega Saturn and like the Sega CD.
Personally, to me, it just looks like Doom with aliens instead of demons.
Well, dude, do you remember when Doom was the hot shit?
Oh yeah. When I was in middle school, it was Doom, Wolfenstein, Rise of the Triad, and Quake.
I never remember Rise of the Triad being worth anything.
Oh, I had a lot of fun with Rise of the Triad, mostly just because they had these really weird weapons, and like when you would blow people up, you'd actually see like the eyeballs splatter across the screen.
I think that's what Duke Nukem ended up doing later on with like Duke Nukem in 3D.
Yeah.
So you remember Duke Nukem 3D? It had a couple of things like you could aim up and down. The enemies like exploded a bit more pleasantly. Like sometimes it had eyeballs that would squish when you would walk over them. You could actually see yourself in a reflection. Of course, you had the mighty boot, and it was a bit more adult because like you had like PG-13 style nudity and shit like that in there.
Yeah.
Like skimpy girls, and like Duke could offer them like a $5.
Yeah, no, I was never a big fan of shooters. Rise of the Triad was one I had fun with. One that I enjoyed, and might be kind of an obscure one, it was called Saint. And what would happen is whenever you would make a kill, whoever got the first kill became the Saint. And you only got kill points for killing the Saint. So while you're the Saint, you can't score. If I'm remembering correctly, but yeah, only killing the Saint actually gets you points.
That sounds like a multiplayer only game.
Yeah.
I remember playing a lot of multiplayer back in those days. The only multiplayer game I played a lot of was some of the modded games of Quake, because I wasn't a big fan of Quake Deathmatch.
Yeah.
I liked the modded games. One of the ones I really liked was this RPG one, where like instead of instead of picking different character classes, like a soldier, demolition man, medic, you instead picked like Dungeons and Dragons style. You picked a knight, you picked a sorcerer, you picked a cleric, you picked a priest, stuff like that. And like your attacks actually leveled up if you managed to stay alive, but I never managed to stay alive very long. So essentially, like if you were good enough, you could just become a god in this fucking game mode because you'd be so high level that your hit points would be hard that like the enemy would have to chew through them, and like all of your weapons were like one hit kills. But Team Fortress 2, well not Team Fortress 2, I'm sorry, Team Fortress Classic. Team Fortress Classic on GameSpy was really fucking fun. I remember playing that in high school. God, man, that was the fucking tits. Ever play that?
No, I never played that. Like I said, shooters wasn't my thing.
Oh god, like in that one, like if
For
you
me, it was all about fighting games.
well, like if you weren't great with shooters, then you probably would have done well with either a spy or the whatchamacallit.
Oh, it wasn't that I wasn't good at them. I was pretty much good at any video games I played when I was young.
Or you just didn't like them.
Yeah, I just didn't care for them.
Man, I had so much fun with Team Fortress 2. The multiplayer on that was so fun. But I think we might have talked about multiplayer at one point. But yeah, Fortress, I keep saying Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress Classic. Team Fortress Classic was really fucking fun. But God, what were a couple of other arcade games that never got ported? Well, we talked about like those beat 'em ups that got yanked.
There's a bunch of SNK like side scrollers and beat 'em ups and stuff that basically only made it to the Neo Geo. And
no, they did do like that SNK collection of the Neo Geo collection or SNK collection Volume 1 for the PS2. I have that. They never did Volume 2, the cocksuckers. So it's like Metal Slug 1, it's like the original King of Monsters, and like Art of Fighting. But none of the sequels, none of that. It never came out. Now, luckily, SNK released a bunch of other compilations. Yeah. Art of Fighting Collection, World Heroes Collection, Metal Slug Collection. But like the stuff, like a lot of the side-scroller games, like, they didn't get released. Yeah. Now, luckily, speaking of emulation, like we were talking about earlier, during my emulation days, I downloaded a bunch of fucking SNK ROMs. That's where I played a lot of my Samurai Showdown was actually on those ROMs. That's where I got really fond of Samurai Showdown 3.
Yeah.
Also, they had Samurai Showdown 3. They had an arcade cabinet over at the college I was going to. So, like, practice at home, take your skills to class.
Yeah. Now, then it's considered a shit game, but you can get it on Mugen if you put in the effort. But I would still like to see it get a release of some kind, is Tattoo Assassins. I mostly just want to play it to see what the fuss is about, but I can picture that being...
You've seen the footage.
Yeah, well, I haven't played the footage, though. I've only seen it.
Yeah, and it's like, one can only wonder how that actually plays, if it's any good.
It's not, I know that much, but I still would like to give it a try.
It plays like a cross between the original World Heroes and the original Street Fighter.
Another game, it was an arcade release, but I'd like to see released again is Way of the Warrior. That was for the Atari Jaguar and only the Atari Jaguar, so it might as well be as obscure as an arcade release that never made it to market.
Even more so in some circles.
Yeah.
I keep remembering Larry Bundy Jr. He has his channel called Guru Larry, but he did a release on this one game for... It was the Atari Jaguar, and it was a game that was supposed to be done by the same guy that did the Virtual Fighter games. Mm-hmm. I think you saw this video with me. And, like, the poor bastard who was programming the game didn't get paid. And so, to, like, teach Atari a lesson, he gave them an unfinished, incomplete build of the game. And like, now you can't publish it unless you pay me. And they fucking published it anyway. Just to get something out there. It's like, what? He fucking bluffed them, and they called him on his fucking bluff. And the consumer paid for it. Yeah. I think he said something to the effect of the guy would eventually release the full finished product, like, online years later. But, like, damn, man. Damn. That's just a big FU to the game designer and a big FU to the customers.
Yeah. Another one that I can think of is Primal Rage 2. There are a few working arcade cabinets. but the game was never officially released, even in the arcade. So
Was it even finished? Like, can you actually play the game fully?
yeah, it is fully finished, complete. It just never got past the whatever stage where they have a few working cabinets. I guess the prototype.
I just don't understand why Midway wouldn't release that.
I don't know.
I mean, if the game's already done, if you don't release it, you eat the loss.
Yeah, and it's years later, and
well, Midway doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, but
Lord knows who the fuck owns like the Primal Rage games in terms of the copyright.
Yeah, well, like when you try to emulate it, it doesn't get past the character select screen. It crashes because of some of the protections they had against piracy. And
once again, DRM can fucking suck it.
And they won't release the code. It's like the game's complete. Nobody will get to play it unless they go to one of these obscure arcade cabinets, and you ain't getting those quarters. Just fucking release the code.
Some people are like that. I don't know if it's like a form of pride that they have. It's like I've known people like that. They have something, and they just fucking refuse to let the public see it for one, fucking reason or another. It's like some reasons are really stupid. Just like it's like it's the one product that I want to keep for myself. Well, fuck you. It's like, I'm sorry. It's like, I know that everyone has a right to their own stuff, but don't fucking be George Lucas about it. Don't Lucas it up. I mean, come on. God, he's one person you could do like a whole topic about too. George Lucas. The rise and fall of George Lucas.
Well, I think the documentary, The People versus George Lucas, covers that well enough.
Yeah.
That's a really good documentary.
It's both an accusation and a defense of him.
Yeah.
It really does.
It's really fair on both sides. It's good. Watch it.
But, going back to video games,
unless you like mayo with your tuna. Then just go drown yourself in a toilet. Tuna is a noble fish and does not deserve to be mayoed. That goes for you too, Angry.
I don't like tuna fish sandwiches. I don't like mayo with my tuna.
All right. Then you can live another day.
Well, fuck you too. Well, let's see. I'm glad that they finally released the Dungeons and Dragons arcade games. I don't like that they're not a physical release, that you have to fucking get them either on Steam, or I gotta deal with bullshit PC control shit, or I gotta download them. Because I downloaded them on my PlayStation 3. My PlayStation 3 is currently bricked, so I can't fucking play the game. I don't feel like buying it again to download it again.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I haven't tried that I really need to fucking see if I can do is if I can actually download shit. Like, do they have certain arcade games that if you bought them for the PlayStation 3, you can also download them for the PlayStation 4? That
would be cool. I got a lot of games on my PS3 I'd like to be able to play, but first I gotta dig it out of the boxes from this move. Dragon's Crown.
Dragon's Crown was pretty fucking fun. I like that game, but I didn't get to play it for very long before my PlayStation 3 bricked on me. I know they're re-releasing it, but I don't really see the point in spending full money for a game that I already own. Just because it's on the PS4, even though the graphics will probably look exactly the fucking same. It's like, no, it's the Pro Edition. I don't give a shit if you put it on 4K TV. The highest resolution TV I have in my fucking house is a 720. So it doesn't matter if it's 4K, it's going to look exactly the same. I can't even take full advantage of the graphical capability of my PS4 because my TV is a 720. It's like, does it play in 1080i or 1080p? I don't give a shit.
Honestly, one of our friends, he's got a really high definition TV, and sometimes looking at the screen, even with older movies, it's almost like looking out a window with how realistic it is. I actually kind of find that jarring rather than, pleasant.
I'll tell you one thing, going off of video games and jumping in the movies here for a moment, I remember watching the second Hobbit movie, which I believe was The Desolation of Smaug.
I don't know. I was bored of the rings before they even got to hobbitses.
Well, like the second Hobbit movie, I saw it in the theaters, and that one they filmed entirely in like the highest fucking resolution they could, and they projected it on like the highest resolution they could. That did the movie absolutely no fucking favors. The CG stood out a lot because you couldn't hide it. It's like the shit that looked like CG fucking looked like CG. There was no hiding it. Like all the costumes looked that much faker because you could see a lot of the details and shit. Like, you know, where like the seams where the makeup starts and the makeup ends.
I've actually had that problem before with horror movies. I used to have a set from the Nightmare on Elm Street series that was digitally remastered, and unfortunately, cleaning that up, you you can see the plastic. You lose your sense of disbelief. It looks the older films, they look really gritty, and when you polish it up, they don't.
Oh god, could you imagine what Texas Chainsaw Massacre would look like? All like fucking 4K'd up and everything, no grit, no grime, no nothing.
I imagine it would look like shit.
I imagine it would look fucking antiseptic and off-putting. It's just no, man, no one needs that. No one needs a clean, spick and span fucking like
Horror.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
We went over this with Windex and Pledge.
And it fucking smells like it too.
Now we're pouring Fabulosa in your drink because we really hate you.
Now, but going back to the Hobbit movie, you know what really fucking sucked in that? The sets. Dude, man, no. The sets, every fucking scene, it looked just like a bunch of dudes in front of a fucking set. I mean, the sets in The Wizard of Oz look more fucking convincing.
Damn.
Because you could see, like, all the rocks look like they're made out of styrofoam. All the grass looked fake. You can literally see where the background ends, like the sheet, where it ends. Like, you know, when it was an actual set. Because it was too fucking detailed. It's like, people need to understand, it's like, high resolution, that is okay to a point. But when it actually like makes it impossible for you to be able to like, you know, suspend your disbelief because you can see every little thing that's not real and like see all the styrofoam, see all the fucking latex, see all the paint, see all the smudge marks. I mean, that doesn't help a movie. And like they've already said that we're getting to a point where we're going to get to resolution so high that the human eye is not going to be able to discern it anymore. It's only going to be able to put it in a resolution that the human eye is incapable of perceiving.
Yeah. Well, the mantis shrimps will enjoy it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Like, you know, in the future they'll end up making like horrible human mantis shrimp, like hybrids. It'll be like all of our movie critics from now on.
And video game critics, because they gotta criticize that, you know, it's not in 480 IP Blu-ray special edition.
It's like some games need good graphics. I'll admit that. A lot of the games I like don't. It's like you like fighting games. Fighting games can be in high graphics. I understand that.
Well, they can be, but I mean, I enjoy the classic Street Fighters, and really, if you take a look at the most highly polished version of Street Fighter 2, it's okay. It doesn't make me want to play the game any more than, you know,
Before.
yeah. You know, nowadays with like some of the big backgrounds they have and the interactive objects and stuff like that, yeah, it's more visually appealing, but at the same time, I mean, you really don't need to go past like Killer Instinct 2's graphics to get the job done. Now, yeah, I love the X-rays and the new Mortal Kombats, and I like the transitional backgrounds and Injustice and things like that, and I certainly wouldn't want to give them up, but you could still do all that at a lower resolution.
I mean, some of my favorite games have garbage resolution. I mean, like, one of my favorite PC games is Victoria Empire Under the Sun. And that is a game played entirely in fucking menus. The only graphics you have are a map of the planet and little soldier sprites that walk from point A to point B. Everything else is a fucking menu. All the pop-ups that show up are just static pictures. All the events that show up are just static pictures. And all of the menus are just that. It's just menus and numbers and sliders and shit like that. It's a very in-depth, complicated, complex game. And having it with like super high-end graphics would add nothing. It would add absolutely nothing to the game. Because it doesn't fucking need it. I mean, with stuff like that, you just don't need that kind of shit. You know, there's like RPGs with good graphics. Yes, there's a lot of good RPGs with good graphics. But you know what? There's a lot of good RPGs that don't have good graphics. I don't want to imagine how fucking busy fucking like Chrono Trigger would look like if it was done with the same graphics that they give to fucking Final Fantasy 15. Like full 3D graphics, that shit would be too busy. And they'd never get the game done.
Or, you know, something like Final Fantasy VI, that would be a big mess in full 3D rendering. And, you know, that game was huge for a Super Nintendo game. And
it's like, now people are saying, like, you know, like, well, it's like, I would love to see Final Fantasy VI redone with, like, modern graphics. Does it need it? No. It does not need it. Now, I would be perfectly fine accepting it with just like refined sprites. Like take all the old sprites,
smooth out the blockiness.
Yeah, just like essentially like you want to make the sprites in like fucking 4K and make them super sharp. Be my fucking guest. I would actually enjoy that because like there's a lot of the monsters there that I can't tell what the fuck I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But then again, I think they kind of did that intentionally. Like the sprite for Kefka, like in battle when you're fighting him, it was like I can't make out his head because of like the sprites get a little bit too blocky in the fine details. Now, if you smooth it out so I could see like his fucking eyelashes, you know, like every little detail, and it was still like the fucking hand-drawn sprites, that would be fucking amazing. I would love that. But on that note, since we're talking about that, one thing I should bring up is Secret of Mana, the remake.
I haven't gotten to see that yet, but...
Well, I own it, and I've offered to bring it over, but you've said no. The argument you've made, and I quote, is, why do you need to bring it over? I already have it on the Super Nintendo. So obviously you don't give a shit about the remake.
Okay, I'm going to be honest here. I just don't want to kill Flammy again.
It's fucking spoilers, man. Yeah, the game's only been out for what, 20 years?
Oh my god.
Actually,
but,
no
but
more
you
than
know
that.
what? But honestly, that was a game that wasn't spoiled for me. I did not know that the Mana Beast was going to be Flammy. I had played to a point where I was almost at the final level, and then I loaned it to a friend and never saw it again. And I didn't get to play it again until like damn near 20 years.
Was it like
as
when
an
I
adult.
got you that? Was that when you did it?
Yeah.
So when I got you the SNES Mini.
Oh, no, not when you got me the NES Mini. I bought it for my wife for Christmas.
Oh,
And,
that's when you finally got to play through it?
yeah, and, then, you know, I get in the final fight, and you kill him, and there's, like, not, you know, some sort of way to save him or resurrect him or anything like that. And I would just, like, put the controller down and have this very sobering moment. Just, you know, bye, Flammy. And, yeah, I didn't feel good about beating the game after all those years.
No,
My wife, she told me when she originally played the game, she literally cried, because this is back when she's a kid. And when she was a kid, you know, there were times she would, you know, pull out the little drum just so she could fly the dragon for no reason other than to fly the dragon.
Mode 7, bitches.
Yeah, you know, she fell in love with the character, and then, oops, final boss.
You have to murder him. Not kill, but murder him. You have to murder him with your weapons, and you have to use magic on your weapons.
Yes.
So that they hurt him that much more. Because you can't just stab him and slash him and hack him to death. No, you need to make the magic mutilate his flesh that much more.
Yeah, we could just drive a stake through the vampire's heart, but we're going to cover it in garlic sauce first.
And then set it on fire as we do it. So we can get that burning damage in there too, because why not? In fact, let's soak the whole thing in flammable poison and venom while we're at it too. Just because. But actually, as a kid, I don't remember being flammy. I guess because my reading skills weren't as good back then, and also because like when you get towards the end of the game, the dialogue gets really fucking squished.
Yeah.
It's at about that point that like Secret of Mana is known for having a really bad translation because they didn't have a lot of space in the game for all of the dialogue that they needed to put in, and they kind of rushed it out a little bit quicker than they would have liked. So it's known that a lot of the dialogue wasn't localized properly. They used improper terms. They left out a lot of details and stuff just for like a multitude of reasons. So once you get towards the end of the game, like they kind of like really summarize how shit's going down. So one way or the other, I don't remember the Mana Beast being flammy. But everyone says it is, so I guess so. I haven't played the game since it came out. Like me and my friend, we rented it and we beat it over a couple of weekends. Because we kept managing to rent the same copy and it saved, like, you know, that's the thing. I just heard James Rolfe talking about this on a video today. Talking about, like, you know, them renting games and, like, you know, like you tried to rent the same copy of the game in hopes that your save file would still be there so that you could continue it. But yeah, we finally managed to beat it. And even, like, if you leave out the fact that it was flammy, it's still not a happy ending. In fact, one thing I should mention, I was looking up the Secret of Mana games, like the first three, because the first one was on the Game Boy, and the other two were on the Super Nintendo. We never got the first one, and, well, we got the first one as Final Fantasy Adventure on the Game Boy. And the third one never came out in the States. And in all three of those games, which are considered to be the main Mana games, there is not a good ending. In the first game, when you get to the Mana Tree, it is destroyed and used to power this asshole who attacks you. You kill him, but the Mana Tree is destroyed. Your girlfriend, or your love interest of the game, ends up sacrificing herself to become the new Mana Tree, and you give up your life to become the new guardian of the Mana Tree. Essentially, you just stay there as the Mana Tree's protector for the rest of time. So, the Mana Tree gets destroyed. It's brought back, but it's still destroyed. In the second game, the Mana Tree is destroyed by the, what was it, like the Mana Fortress. They just show up and fucking Death Star the shit out of it. And because the Mana Tree gets destroyed, and the Mana Fortress gets destroyed at the end, and the Mana Beast gets destroyed at the end, there is no mana left in the planet, and so all magic fades from the planet. So the sprite dies, because they're creatures of magic, and with no magic, they cannot survive, so the sprite dies. I remember at the end you see like the ghost of the sprite sitting in a tree looking up at the sky. But it's still dead. Like all the moggles, all the sprites, all of them, gone. That's the end of that game. Third game, guess what? Mana Tree gets destroyed. Big fucking surprise there. Didn't want to break the trend. And like one of the fairies sent by the Mana Tree, like once you beat the game, it explains that the Mana Tree can regrow, but it's going to take like 10,000 years. And during that time, there will be no magic. So, figure it out. Yeah, enjoy your non-magic. Because you fucked up. And like, after reading through these synopses, I'm like, you don't win in any of those fucking games. It's like, welcome to Secret of Mana. Long story short, you lose. You fuck up. Doesn't matter which one, you fucked it up.
They're still fun to play.
It's like you had one fucking job. Save the mana tree. Did you? No. You suck, you lose, good day, sir. It's like, well, at least I saved the world. Yes, but you still fucked up. I can't get...
They saved the world, but there's no more pancakes.
It's like everything that was fun and good and happy in the world is now gone because you couldn't do your one fucking job. I hope you're happy. You ruined it for everybody.
No more Hot Pockets.
No more Wendy's. None. No more dumplings. No more bacon and eggs.
At least we still got Arby's.
No more macaroni and cheese. No more comfort food in general anymore.
Arby's will be my comfort food.
No more cheese. You don't get cheese anymore. Unless it's that really hard, uncomfortable, foul-smelling cheese that tastes like feet. Yeah.
I'm down with that cheese as long as you use it sparingly.
When it's the only cheese you have. If you want spaghetti, this is what we have to use now.
Well, like, blue cheese and gorgonzola and stuff like that, they're just like a really, really sour Parmesan, but if you use them sparingly, they can actually do a lot for a dish.
Well, anyway.
But,
No more happiness. It's just toil. Everything's fucking like Dwarf Fortress now. Everything's just sad forever. Oh, speaking of graphics, God, there's a game that needs no graphics. Dwarf Fortress. That...
You don't want your Dwarf Fortress in 40K?
God, that game would be way too fucking busy. That would make computers melt. Super high-end computers with like dual gigabyte processors, like, really fucking high-end processors. My computer has a pretty decent processor, and it's only about a year old. And Dwarf Fortress doesn't really run on graphics because anyone that knows, look up Dwarf Fortress. If you're listening right now, go on to Google, Wikipedia, I don't care. Look up Dwarf Fortress and look up pictures of it. And you're probably wondering, what the fuck am I looking at? Dwarf Fortress is a game that's been getting worked on by a dude since, I think, 2006. And he's been working on it by himself and sometimes with his brother. And it's literally just a game where you control dwarfs and the object is to just survive while everything is out to get you, including your own dwarfs. Now, the whole game doesn't have graphics. The graphics are simply ASCII, or they're in text. It's a placeholder until he actually gets to the graphics because he's still working on the actual components of the game. The game is so fucking complex that it's actually a meme that people can't figure it out. Which, I don't consider myself special, but I've managed to figure it out. And it's not that hard. The hard thing is just keep going, because the longer you keep going, the more angry shit's gonna come at you. At first it's just, it's like, a minotaur or a giant. Then it's gonna be dragons that set everything on fire. Then it's forgotten beasts, and the forgotten beasts are randomly generated. They can literally be anything from a giant slug made out of grass to a giant 7-headed hydra that spews poison gas, has fangs that can dissolve flesh on contact, and is made out of solid steel. So good luck dealing with that.
I like sausage.
Yeah, you tend to say that whenever you don't have something to commit, but that game is like, and the thing is, it's so complex that like it makes computers slow down to a fucking crawl. My computer's almost crashed running that thing. And it doesn't even have to render the graphics. It's just that's how much shit's going on. It's amazing. It's like, I love it, but people can't seem to wrap their head around it. So it's fun to try to explain it, and there's so many fun things you can do on there. But I'll go into detail about that again. Going back to my point, Jesus Christ, how many times have I had to say that? Secret of Mana 3D It is nice to get a better idea of what the monsters look like. I don't like that they redesigned some of the monsters from the ground up. One of the monsters in the original game was literally like a turtle, and it looked just like a car. It looked like a fucking Koopa Troopa, if I remember correctly. It's just a hardback like shell turtle with a spear. But when they did him in the new 3D one, he looks completely different. His color's different. He's red. He's got like a small shell. He's got like another shell on his front side. His head looks complete. He looks more like an anime soldier with a turtle theme than a cartoony Koopa Troopa turtle with the spear. I also noticed something else. One of the characters that one could easily argue was a very racist depiction of a character. I forget what it's called. It's like a mudman. You run into him along with a bunch of zombies. It's actually a monster spawner. It spawns zombie men in the temple to the south of the kingdom of Pandora, which is the first kingdom you run into in the game. And in the original game, they look like these little bushmen. They're like little men with little beady black eyes, like little sprout-looking hair, brown skin, a grass skirt. They sit generally up to their waist in like a floating pot, and they have the big, like Jim Crow, like black offensive stereotype looking lips. And yes, I understand that this is like a really offensive stereotype, but it's a monster in a game that was made by the Japanese, and the Japanese don't have concepts of racial stereotypes because they hate any and all races, creeds, and nationalities that aren't Japanese, because they're naturally a very xenophobic people. But they changed the design so that it doesn't look the same in the new one, and I kind of found that to be disappointing. I think, like, it was offensive to look at, fine. We understand that it comes from a culture that has no concept of being racially sensitive. So you can't really say that, oh, it's racist for the sake of being racist. It's just a fucking monster design. Get over it. But they changed it anyway, so for what it's worth. What is it that you have here? Fats has pulled up while I've been ranting. He's pulled up 4 action figures that appear to be the Duck Dynasty guys.
Yes.
Why do you have these?
I actually had bought them for the accessories they came with for some of my G.I. Joes.
They do look like exactly the same size and shape as G.I. Joes.
Yeah, they're similar in articulation too. They don't have the hook rubber band waist components like the G.I. Joes do, but yeah, I've got these 4 Duck Dynasty figures that were in a bag with 7 Predator figures that are also about the same size. And I'm thinking about making like a little, what do you call it?
Kit bag?
Diorama with the Duck Dynasty Warriors facing off with these Predators. If I do that, we'll post a picture or something.
Somewhere.
Okay.
It's like, I didn't even know they made fucking Duck Dynasty G.I. Joe figures. I mean, look at this guy. It's like a fucking backwoods Santa Claus with his fucking beard and hat.
Yeah, they had some pretty interesting accessories that I thought would go with some of my G.I. Joes that I had on display, so I bought them because they were only $2 each.
We are gonna need to do like an entire like recording dedicated to just like your figure collecting if we haven't already done so, because you have a lot of stuff to talk about, and that's gonna be like a multi video recording.
Well, yeah, action figures has been my passion since I was a child, and my parents supported the madness. So
all right.
I didn't know how blessed I was until I was older.
Well, anyway, going back to video games, what video game would you like to see them do a remake of? Not necessarily with like, updated game effects or like new content, but just a graphical upgrade to and release it on a modern console?
Astyanax.
Astyanax?
Yeah. As far as I know, there was an arcade version of it that I never saw or got to play.
For the sake of the viewers, give a description of the game.
It's a side scroller for the Nintendo. You're basically a high school student who suddenly gets summoned by a fairy, and you're given armor and an axe called Bash. And
so you have an axe that's named after the onomatopoeia for a blunt weapon, as opposed to a slashing weapon.
Yeah. Now, as you go through and you fight monsters, and the monsters are kind of Greek mythology in nature. It eventually becomes a spear and finally a sword. And one thing I didn't know is you actually have multiple types of magic in the game. I only knew about the fire effect, but apparently when you pause the game, you can actually change out what your magic is. So I never got to use the healing potions, the lightning, or the time stop, or anything like that. Was just
Play that fucker on hard mode.
Yeah. If I had known there was a healing potion, I would have beaten that game so much quicker. But I got really, really good at it, and I actually make that game look easy, and it's a pretty tough one. But I've actually beaten it on one life before. So.
Beating most Nintendo games with just one life is an impressive feat in its own. Nintendo games were not fond of being beaten.
In some cases, just beating the game was an accomplishment.
It's like fucking go. It's like, there's still people that gloat that, like, they beat the original Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, that one took me a really long time to beat. I never did it as a kid. What actually inspired me is James Rolfe did the video about Ninja Gaiden, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, we have some unfinished business, and I sat down.
It's time. It's time. It's Vader time.
I sat down and I did not stop until I had finally beaten that game. And I had my wife take a picture of the final screen. Just
send that shit off to Nintendo Power, get an angry letter back saying, what the hell are you doing? We stopped making that magazine years ago.
Well, just anybody who would dare question me that, whether or not I beat it, I could say fuck you, end screen, right there.
Yeah, it's just like some of those games are insane with their fucking difficulty. But then again, a lot of them had to be. The games weren't particularly long, and you weren't going to be spending $50 on a game.
Yeah.
Unless you were going to be getting $50 of out of it.
Yeah, you didn't want to sell a game for $50 only for 2 days later. Hey mom, I beat the game. I need something new. It's
because that's when your parents don't buy you nothing no more because unless you're some rich bastard who had that kind of parents that could afford that shit. I didn't.
Yeah. I actually had quite a few Nintendo games. I don't know where I got most of them from.
You probably stole them and just buried that memory.
No, I know my mom got a lot of them from pawn shops. So, weren't paying full price there. But, I remember, there'd be more games. Not stuff I asked for, just more games, and so.
The only games that my parents got me where I didn't have to ask for them were the Atari games, but that's because a lot of them they had before I was born. Because they originally had gotten the Atari for themselves and not for me. Of course, back then my sister used to play the thing too. That's back when she used to play video games. She says she still does, but she's full of shit. I've been to her house. Most of the games she has, which are very few, still have the fucking shrink wrap on them. I'm sure for her it's just more of just a nostalgia thing of having them. She has no intention of actually playing the fucking thing. I do. I don't buy games for the intention of not playing them.
Yeah.
Because what's the point? It's
There's only one game I've ever bought and that I never played, and that was Resident Evil 4. I had played other people's copies, but when I got mine, I just suddenly, didn't.
Now, there are games that I own that I have not played, but it's not a case of, I'm not going to play them for the sake of not playing them. It's I haven't gotten to them yet. Because I got a fuckload of games. I got a shitload of games, not a lot of older games, because obviously I didn't have a job back then. I wasn't able to start buying my own games until like the PS2 era. And so I got a lot of PS2 games. I got a decent amount of Xbox games. I got a good amount of PlayStation 3 games. And my PlayStation 4 library is growing. And of course, I just got a Switch last year. I've only got Breath of the Wild for it, but I'm planning on getting some more games this month.
Yeah.
In fact, it is the 15th. I plan on getting that Hyrulean Warriors when it comes out this Friday. Which, that game looks fun as hell. I've always loved the Dynasty Warriors games, even though it seems that they have fucked up on the most recent one, 9.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Um, I've had fun with the Dynasty Warriors that I've played, but it's not like one of my mains.
Well, no, it's like when I see you play them, it always seems like you're just kind of like, like just playing around with them. Like you're not playing the game to unlock the characters or advance the story or get all the items. You're just playing the game. You're like, all right, let's just kill a bunch of guys for like, about 10 minutes. It's like, ooh, that was fun. And then you just turn it off.
Yeah.
Which, like a cathartic time killer, there's nothing wrong with that.
I still really enjoyed. I don't remember which version it was that you brought over, but you asked me to make a character that looked like me.
Yes, it was a Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires. Because the thing is that people don't realize Dynasty Warriors is made by Tecmo Koei. Used to be just Koei. And Koei was always known for doing strategy games. The first big one that put them on the map was Nobunaga's Ambition. And this was like way back in the day. I mean like 80s. like I think the first one came out before even the Nintendo did. It was like back on the old like computers back in those days. And that's like, nowadays it's a really fucking archaic like strategy game, but it was the one that put them on the map. They had Nobunaga's Ambition, then Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and then they came out with a bunch of other ones, like some of them for the Super Nintendo as well. Like you had East versus West, you had the God, what was it? Bandit Kings of Ancient China. You had a couple other Romance of the Three Kingdoms style games. Gemfire. Gemfire was one I really fucking loved. It was a more simplified version of Romance of the Three Kingdoms or Nobunaga's Ambition that was set in like a fantasy European island. So the units were actually based like in a European style, You didn't have like, Yari men and like, like Naginata troops. You had like, swords and shields, long swordsmen, cavalry, like archers, shit like that, Like, you didn't have to know Chinese or Japanese history to know what the fuck you were using.
Oh, the character I made, it did actually look pretty close to me, except for the cat hat. But the weapon of choice I had was just like a chain with a big weight at the end. And I had quite a bit of fun just pulping things with the chain.
Well, it's like the Dynasty Warriors games, I've always liked. It's like ever since the first Dynasty Warrior games I never played. That was a one-on-one fighting game. It was essentially a rip-off of Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
Same basic premise, one-on-one fighting game using weapons. It was not very popular. For whatever reason, when they made the second one, they made it into an action beat-em-up. Now, what set this from other beat-em-ups, those of you who've never played a Dynasty Warrior games, now they're a little bit more mainstream. People generally know what the hell a Dynasty Warriors games are. For those of you who don't, the basic premise is you are an officer in an army and you're fighting another army. So, one thing I've always hated about a lot of beat-em-ups like Final Fight and Streets of Rage and all those is the idea of like, one guy taking on the world is stupid. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't care how badass Mike Hagar and like, Cody is, but they're not going to be able to beat down the entirety of the Mad Gear gang. Realistically, they can't. Now, that's what sets this game apart from those, because while you can still whale ass on an entire army, you have your army behind you. You're working with an army.
Yeah, of course, the computer-controlled army does fuck all proper, but
It depends on the game. There's a lot of the other games where like you really fucking need that army. Some of the earlier Empire games that I've played, like if you go in too deep into enemy territory, it doesn't matter how good you are or how high of a level you are. The computer's going to start kicking the shit out of you, and you're going to go running like a bitch back to your home territory just to get behind your own line so that you can go heal because you're sick of getting kicked around like a goddamn soccer ball. It's like, okay, I'm sick of getting my head kicked in. I'd like to heal now, please. Thank you. So like if you didn't work as like a good commander and like set up some forward bases so that your rear lines could actually have like healing items, you're completely fucked. But you know, not all of the games punish you like that. Now, the one you were playing was the 8th one. And the Empires games, they're a bit more like the Romance of the Three Kingdoms games. It's like, hey, do you like kicking the shit out of people, but also like doing other things on the downtime? Well, then we have a game for you. It's essentially for people who like action, the Dynasty Warrior series, but also want a little bit of strategy thrown in. Which, that's great for me, because I like both of those games. But they have the Extreme Legends games, which are like the basic Dynasty Warrior games with a little bit more. Then you have the Empire. So usually it'll be like a Dynasty Warriors numbered game, a Dynasty Warriors Extreme Legends, and then a Dynasty Warriors Empires. And so, yeah, number 8 went through all the things. They had the regular 8, then they had the Extreme Warriors, then they had the Empires. And so I brought over the Empires one. It was pretty good.
now, just out of curiosity, like, you know, if you're interested in getting into the Dynasty Warrior games, um,
Like, would it be a good jumping?
should you like buy all 3 versions, or should you just does Empires like cover all the previous games plus new stuff?
No, it essentially works like this. If you want to get the generic Dynasty Warriors experience, the basic game will do you just fine. Like, you can get Dynasty Warriors 8 and you will get a lot of play value. You get all of the characters, or most all of the characters. You get the story modes for each of the kingdoms, and then you get, like, sometimes there's a few challenge modes, but you can also level up the characters. There's fun to, like, max out the level of all the characters, get all of the achievements for each of the battles, because some of the battles will have, like, you know, hey, go to this point and kill this character before this happens, or go find this object and bring it back to your camp within this time frame. Essentially, like missions to do.
Right.
Some of them will unlock things, and some of them are just there just so you can say you did everything in this battle. And the battles are always set pieces. They're designed to be based on a particular battle in history. Now, the Extreme Legends, well, generally, sometimes they'll add characters, sometimes they won't. Generally, they always will add a few more characters in Extreme Legends. So if you want all the characters plus like an extra 3 or 4, they'll throw them in there. So you get all the characters from the regular Dynasty Warrior games, plus a few more characters. And it'll generally have a few more story modes.
Okay, so like if you're wanting the more complete edition, you'd go with the Extreme Legends.
Yes. Now, the thing is,
Now, do they cut any content in the Extreme Legends, or?
in the earlier ones, they did. In some of the earlier ones, the Extreme Legends didn't have the story mode. It just had extra modes, which you can then use to like fill out your experience. Like, you know, hey, like a create your own kingdom mode. Or like, you know, an endurance mode. See how long you can go down this gauntlet of stages without getting any health regeneration. And just see how far you can get. And other stuff like that. Some of the games, like Dynasty Warriors 5 Extreme Legends, actually let you, I think, make your own new characters, train them up, and then you could import them into the regular Dynasty Warriors games. So you could actually, like if you got Dynasty Warriors 5 Extreme Legends, you could import that character to Dynasty Warriors 5. Now, in like some of the earlier ones, like I said, you can't access it. But in that one, like since it was a PS2 game, well, if you want to play the story mode, you take out that disc when it tells you to, and you put in the regular game disc. It's like, all right, and then you'll just play it off of that. Now, because Blu-ray games have a lot more storage capacity, you can, like for instance, Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends for the PS4 has all the stuff, all of the story modes, all of the campaigns, all of the content from the regular Dynasty Warriors 8, plus new characters, plus a new game mode, plus a whole new campaign. It covers the campaign for Lu Bu, that character, and which is where the new characters come in because the new character is exclusive to his kingdom.
Now, so when you're going from Extreme Legends to Empire, are you losing anything, or are they just adding on top of the cake?
Yes, you are. It's a different experience altogether. The Empire games are designed to be essentially a different flavor of the same food. So in the Empire games, you can't play the story mode. There is no story mode that follows the Romance of the Three Kingdoms story or the Dynasty Warriors story.
Yeah.
You're not getting the, hey, make a character from scratch and then train them up like in some of the Extreme Warriors games. Like Dynasty Warriors Extreme Legends 8 didn't have that mode. 5 did, but 8 did not. But they're always trying new stuff because keep in mind they're at Dynasty Warriors 9 now.
Yeah.
Which means like they can't just keep pumping out the same game. So in Dynasty Warriors 6, they changed the combat style completely. They went with a more realistic combat style that was based off of combos. They call it the Ranbaru system, I think. And in that one, essentially, rather than like doing like a weak strong attack or something like that, instead it was just you mashed on the attack button and your character would do a series of combos based on a real fighting style, and the combo would loop. He would essentially loop the same attack over and over again, and you could mix it up with the heavy attack, which would then loop back into the regular attack. And as your character gained more Ranbar level, their attack would expand, like they'd add more moves to the combo. But essentially you could just keep repeatedly mashing on the attack button and they'll just keep doing it until they get interrupted. A lot of people thought that that was really basic and unintuitive, which it was, because essentially it just made it feel like you're just walking while hitting.
It's sort of like playing Kasumi in Dead or Alive. You just keep pressing the weak attack button and she's got a 7-hit combo.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, like, as long as you're holding, like, the weak attack, or, like, repeatedly smashing on the weak attack, and your character has a good amount of range with their weapon, like, if they're wielding a pole-arm weapon, like a spear, or like, a long-handled axe, the minions aren't going to get near you, because you're just going to tear them apart. The only ones that pose a threat to you are the officers. So, or, like, you know, some of the minions will have shields that will block your attack, so you have to, like, mix it up. Or you have to hit them from behind. It's like some will use ranged attacks on you. But like really it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. I mean, like, as you can go through the regular Dynasty Warriors games and just smash on the weak attack, but like you can like do one weak attack and follow it up with like a heavy attack and do like a crazy combo. So like each one leads into a different combo. Some combos end up in knockups, some combos end up in stuns. Some combos will send you flying in a straight line. Some combos will do like an AoE attack. It just depends on the character and the weapon they're using.
Yeah.
Like the ones that have the most varied attacks are the more mystic characters, like characters that use the fan weapons, like Zhuge Liang, or like Sima Yi, or characters that use mystic staffs, like Pang De, or Zhang Zhao. It's like, you know, some of their attacks, they might shoot fire from their staffs. They might create whirlwinds around their bodies. They might shoot fireballs. They may float in the air and like fire spreads out below them in an AoE attack. It's like you really don't know what the fuck they're going to do because like their attacks are based on mysticism. So really it's like just straight up magic, you know. With like a dude with an axe, whatever he's going to do, he's going to use that axe. If a dude has like a magic staff, you don't know what the fuck he's going to do to you.
Alright, well, it's getting pretty late.
Yeah, we've already been doing
near the half-hour mark, and I got dialysis at 6 in the morning. So.
Yeah, we're at 1.5 hours right now, minute 28. So yes, let's go ahead and cut this now. I think we've been talking enough. Once again, if you like what you hear, we'd love some suggestions. Still haven't posted any of these. God damn it. I'd like to get these up on YouTube at some point. I may just start throwing them up on like iTunes. I don't know how yet. I need to figure out how to do that. But we'll get these posted somewhere, and when we do, like, comment, subscribe, give us suggestions, give us something to talk about. And yeah, as always, once again, thank you for listening, and if you are, stay fat and angry, as we are.